Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to 20 Minutes for Israel from Israel. Thank you for joining us. And a special welcome to our guest who's from Israel, but happens to be visiting our community. I typically get to say, welcome to our virtual Young Israel, but on Shabbat, we'll be able to say welcome to our actual Young Israel. So we're very honored that you're joining us. But joining us all the way from Shiloh, Israel, and has the special privilege of making some time to talk to us today. Chava is originally from Montreal, Connecticut, Canada. Also where Yitzmos happens to be from, apparently, and Juanita. And has been a social worker for 25 years, working with individuals and families, and is currently the director of community services for Shiloh, which, besides for being adjacent to the site of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle, is a community in the heart of the Shomron of about 500 families now, 450?
Yeah. Almost 500, yeah.
Awesome. And of course, like so many other people in Israel, beyond carrying the professional load, has family and friends who are serving in the IDF, who served were called up after October 7th. We're really grateful for you making some time to join us and to be part of this important program. Besides what I shared a little bit about you, why do you want to tell us a little bit more about you and your family, and sort of what's been going on in these last 124 days?
Sure. We'll see if I can do that in 20 minutes. So like Rabbi Brander said, I live in Shiloh with my family. We've been living there for almost 30 years. And my husband, Daniel, and myself, we have 5 children. Our oldest son is Shlomo, who's 25, who is married with 2 beautiful children, has been serving in Gaza pretty much since the beginning of the war. And I'll talk a little bit about that after. And then we have 4 other children who also have been, some living at home, some in Jerusalem, and basically have been involved in all kinds of different things in the community. But basically, we've been going through this whole situation together and trying to find ways to kind of deal with it and cope and keep our hopes up and doing good things. So like I said, as a community services director in this time, I never imagined such challenges, and I've worked in a number of complicated communities and through certain crises, but what we've been going through is something that no one could ever imagine, as many of you have definitely heard. I can just say that basically from the beginning from October 7th, like many people, it was just shocking. I mean, we were sort of in that stage of just shock and what's really happening and how is this happening, and real fear for our lives and for, of course, our soldiers' lives and our friends and also in our own community. And then it sort of, we switched into, okay, let's do. We got to do. We got to keep doing, and that sort of keeps us going. I have a very interesting perspective on things because, as you said, Robert Brander, as also from a personal, what we've been going through in our family, and obviously worrying very much for our son, Shlomo, who has been in Gaza. And of course, the fears of every one of our kids or our neighbors or friends and family, but also sort of managing this crisis intervention in the community. Basically, we have also a hostage that was taken on October 7th. He was one of the first guys that was shown actually all over the news, Avinatan Or and his girlfriend Noah, who were at the party. And we've always since then been trying to do things in the community also to raise awareness all over the country, but also within ourselves to show that if one of our boys are taken or in need, we're there for them. And we've had some fallen soldiers, one of which I'll talk about a little bit after. And one of our biggest challenges became basically taking care of 150 women whose husbands have been called to war. And sort of basically what happened was that this became one of our main focuses because we understood that we need to keep these women and families, take care of them, basically. And every stage was like a different stage of what needs to be done. And we've been doing things from smallest things of like meals and babysitters and helping clean houses to making events for the women, getting them out of the house, things for women and children to be together. And also, thank God, some of the soldiers have come home recently, and that's another stage of, wait, okay, so my husband's been away or father's been away, and they come back home, and helping them deal with what they've been through. And as a couple, where are we? And every stage is like a different challenge. And as well, most of the soldiers know that they're going to be going back soon. So it's sort of like a temporary, hi, I'm home. How do we deal with this? But it's really been a range of things that I could never imagine that we'd be dealing with.
I even just listening to you list it all, it's incredible and unbelievable what I'm in awe just of just the range of things. How do you go about beginning to organize that as a community service director?
So so basically, actually, at the beginning of the war, I went back to a model that I had built during COVID that helped me at a first level kind of organize it. Okay, wait a minute. We know how to deal with crisis. This was a completely different thing. But first, like staffs of volunteers that we had set up, lists of people that either have past trauma or sort of special needs that we need to give attention to. So I started with that model and sort of mapping out the things that we thought needed to be dealt with. But what happened was that, like I said, it's just that more and more things just kept popping up that we had never imagined. And I realized after a week or two that we were on a much larger scale, and I had to recruit a number of a lot more volunteers and a lot more staff. And we had to do a lot of programming just to get people out of their houses and make sure people weren't, getting too depressed. Or so we were basically almost doing everyday sort of things where we had like the gym open, and we had activities for mothers and kids to come out and just to kind of talk and be together. And that was one of the very big differences of COVID, because in COVID, everybody was at home. And then at the first week or two, people were scared actually to leave their houses. We had women that were alone, and Shiloh is a community that is in the West Bank and surrounded on the outside by things that could be scary, especially in these times. That was one of our threats, was what happened there maybe could happen here. But inside the community, you do feel pretty much safe. We have a lot of security, and we have another 150 soldiers that have been recruited to our community. And this time, my husband is one of them, actually, who's also serving in reserve duty in the area. But we had people that were really scared to leave their house. And that was one of the things we had to sort of get through in the beginning, saying, no, you come and be and talk, because that's what people need to do right now. You need to be together. So we did a lot of things like that. And we just kept, once a week meeting the staff that was dealing with it and saying, okay, what's our focus this week? What are the needs? What are the new things? And we also learned that some of the small things were just really important, like as much as, trauma, therapy, and all kinds of things that people needed. But sending a cake or flowers to a family for Shabbat, or just showing people that we see them, was one of the most important things that was really sort of interesting in this crazy time that we noticed. And it just, we keep going on and saying, okay, what's today? And one of the major challenges is that you never know what's going to hit you. Like many people, you sort of open up the news every day and say, okay, what happened today? Who was killed? What's happening? And you never know if it's going to be a good friend, or if it's going to be, God forbid, one of your children or your family. And you're in this mode of, okay, you always have to be ready for whatever's going to come. And that's something that's really hard to hold together for a long time. And we kind of realized that, I think most people actually, that part of dealing with this whole situation is that it's okay to break down sometimes. And then you realize that you can put yourself back together. And that's sort of something that I realized about myself as well. And many people on my staff and people in the business, it's okay. You can say, yeah, it's a really bad day. It's a really bad week. I need help this week, or I can't handle it this week, but okay, but we can do this again. And that's sort of something that also as a community and also on a personal level, we've been going through.
Is there, part of the point of this program is sort of get insight behind the headlines. And, it speaks to a group of people who are, we feel very distant from Israel. but care so deeply. Um, is there a moment or two in the last, let's say, 2 months, not even going all the way back to October 7th, that sticks out in your head to sort of illustrate for us?
Yeah, I actually have a number of them, but I'll choose one that I hope is not too hard to hear. But as I said, we had a fallen soldier whose name was Gilad Nitzan, who happens to be a very good friend of our son. Sorry, a son of a very good friends in the community, since we've been there actually from day one. And as part of my job, basically when someone is killed or injured or right away, I'm on call and we go often to intervene with the family or tell them what's been going on. And when Gilad was killed, so it was a couple of minutes before Shabbat where we actually got the information, and the army comes to tell the family. I don't know how much you all know about how it exactly works, but it's a whole operation. And then another person who I work with, who's a volunteer in charge of the emergency team, she came to knock on my door, and my son said, Ima, Tria's outside, she wants to talk to you. And I said, oh, wonderful. Maybe she brought me like a cake for Shabbat or flowers. How nice. And he said, she wants you to go outside. I said, oh, okay. This doesn't sound so great. And I went outside and she said to me, Chava, Gilad Nitzan was killed. And it was just, I like, as much as I just broke down and crying and I hugged her and I took a couple of minutes and she said, Chava, we have to get to work. And that was one of the things like that you always have to, as a manager and as in charge of this whole thing, it's a personal loss and it's very sad and scary, but you also have to go and we had to go and tell the parents and tell our sisters as a full family. A lot of the family lives in Shiloh. And obviously that was just a really rough weekend and Shabbat. But what happened was 24 hours later, I didn't understand why this was all happening like at a very last minute. And I said, why didn't anybody prepare us for this? Like if we would have known, we could have worked better. We could have. And this person, Tria, she said to me on Sunday morning when we finally had a chance to talk, she said, Chava, what happened was that the army doesn't like to give out information about who before they go and tell the parents. But she said they did tell us at one point that it was Shiloh and what street it was on. And she said, I couldn't tell you because I didn't know if I was coming to tell you, God forbid, that your son had been killed or if it was Gilad. And that was sort of when everything kind of hit home and said, okay, like you never know what's going to be. So that was something that stood out in my head and kind of took me along as things went on. You just never know. You just never know.
I, it's, it's just situations we pray that can't even imagine that we have to deal with.
Yeah.
What's the mood in Israel? Obviously there's so many moods, but behind the headlines, what's your assessment of the way people are feeling in Shiloh and just with everything going on?
So I think one of the you know, as these past months have gone on, so you meet somebody or you get on a meeting or you see them. So how are you? Or what's going on, right? And I think the answer that people have sort of tried to answer and what I say is doing the best I can in this crazy times. And then there are days when it's not that. A couple of weeks ago when the 21 soldiers were killed, I had just supposed to open a meeting that morning and I just got on and I said, you know what, like I try to say, okay, let's talk about something good that had happened. And I said, today, we're just not going to try that. Everybody knows, and it's okay. And we just don't have words to express what's going on. But there are really hard times and really hard days. And like I said, and like I mentioned here, but on the other hand, I think what really does bring you up is what people have been doing and getting together. If it's just, I'm talking, let's say, if I look at our community, the volunteers and the youth and everybody is just always coming up with something else to help and to do. And that really is something that uplifts the mood. And even, you know, family and being together and trying to do things that sort of after a certain point, people didn't know how to act. Like people said, okay, we have to be sad all the time. We're scared. We don't know what's going to happen. And the sort of the fact that you have to keep on living life and you have to do things that make you feel good. You have to take care of yourself, you have to take care of your family. At a certain point, we made it really important to, sit down and have dinner and just talk about what's been going on, or go for a walk, or things that you need to do to keep making sure that you don't sort of just fall down. And like I said in the beginning, just always you need to pick yourself up and know that it's okay to fall apart, but know that you need to keep going on. So I think doing is a big thing that keeps people going. And also just, there are some bad days and there are some bad weeks, but overall, the things that we can do and the fact that our children are fighting and us in the community, we're doing whatever we can to keep people happy and uplifted is sort of the game of what we've been playing.
You're talking to a group of American Jews who care deeply about Israel. What is something that you think we need to know? And what are ways that you think we can be active to help support, both the people of Shiloh, but also the people of Israel?
So I think that's something that I can say is that I've been speaking to groups lately that have been visiting Shiloh or in Israel, or when I've been here. This is the first time I actually left Israel since the beginning of the war. I can honestly say, and I'm not just saying this because I'm talking to a group of Americans, but the support from Americans or Jews from around the world is something that really is so important. And I'm talking about even just the support, like when I meet groups and talk to people and they want to try to say, wow, like, thank you for what you've been doing, or, not that I need someone to say thank you or say that you're so wonderful, but it's so amazing to feel that connection from around the world. And so coming to Israel, and visiting people and doing things, but also, of course, support for different projects. Right away in the beginning of the war, our friends and family from overseas started saying, Chava, what can we do to help? And I was like, oh, okay, wait, this is the long haul. There's a lot of needs and there's a lot of things we're going to be doing. So people started just donating money for different projects or things, or bigger projects, smaller projects. And I can really honestly say that it's something that obviously, besides the help that we need to keep things going, it really makes you feel like you're not alone. And that's really one of the most amazing things that I felt from Jews from around the world since the beginning of the war.
The courage, the strength that you bring is just it's unbelievable. And the resolve of just the entire people of Israel and the families, and we've heard and you described in terms of about not just the soldiers on the front line, but the home front and all the support services of all the organizations and communities to help that. The little bit we do in America, we feel like it's pales in comparison to the small that we can do for the people on the front lines, for Am Yisrael, for the Jewish people, for Medinat Yisrael, the Jewish state, and Eretz Yisrael, the Jewish land. Thank you so much for taking some time. We're going to stop the formal 20 minutes for Israel from Israel now, but our speaker has been gracious enough to stick around and take any questions that people have. So hold on one second.
Thank you. Thank you all.